Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about some controversial Commander decks, some problematic playstyles potentially. It just really, well, Commander is an interesting format where certain kinds of playstyles might not be as welcome as they are in other formats. If you're a new player especially, take some notes. Let's jump in. So, first up, this is one I learned the hard way, and I will be giving some examples. Storm. Storm is a problematic playstyle in Commander, and it is not welcome in, well, certain casual groups. I would say a good amount of casual groups out there. And again, this is all group dependent. I'm not saying you can't play a Storm deck. I am saying that if you're about to play one, say at an LGS, ask before you play it, because everyone at the table very well might just get up halfway through you storming off and leave and go play with other people. That just might happen. That being said, if you do have an established playgroup with any of these, obviously, you can, understand that this is playgroup dependent, obviously, but at an LGS with people that you've never played with before, Storm can be problematic. Now, what exactly is Storm? Now, Storm is a, well, type of deck that, typically casts an absurd amount of spells in a single turn. You are storming off the mechanic Storm, where, like, hey, based on the number of spells you cast that turn, you get whatever effect that many times, essentially. So, yeah, this is a playstyle that takes up a good amount of time. And, again, I personally have gone through this, and I did this with my Joyride deck, actually, when I first started playing Commander. I was very, very proud of my Joyride Captain deck, and it was definitely a deck where I was super excited about it, and I put probably the most time out of any deck I've ever put into to tweaking it to get it to be perfect, because I made like a Rube Goldberg machine, and it just is like, oh, it's awesome, it can do this, and then this, and this, and this, and then this leads to that, this leads to that. And all of a sudden, you are literally taking a 20-minute turn, and you are playing solitaire, and your opponents are just sitting there on their phones, not paying attention, because, yeah, you've completely dominated the game and the time of the game where they are doing absolutely nothing. And sometimes you don't even win. You literally just have this really long turn, like, well, I did all these cool things, I drew half my deck, but I didn't win. Your turn. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, all right, we're just going to go back around the table one more time. And then you're going to storm off again on your next turn, and then hopefully you win then, so you get another 20-minute turn. This is a play style that, well, it is not, again, I will show off kind of the numbers on these right here. It's not one of the more popular play styles according to EDH Rec. None of these are, because again, there is a little bit of a stain, I would say, on these play styles for casual Commander games. I am saying casual specific Commander games for these play styles. You're playing CDH, anything goes, play whatever you want. When it comes to casual, though, if you're playing a Storm deck, this is one where you should be asking ahead of time and saying, hey, I've got this deck, it does storm off, are you okay with that? And also, if they're okay with it, they might also ask you, like, yeah, while you're storming off, though, like, we might just concede if that's okay with you, because you got it. You got there. We trust that you'll probably win, and we don't really want to go through with it. So, some commanders that do storm off, that can have the potential to storm off. I mean, Urza. We'll talk about Urza maybe in a different play style that might be, also kind of problematic in a way. But Urza is definitely one that can. Any kind of like an artifact strategy, you can do some pretty gross things, especially when you have artifacts that can tap for a mana automatically right away. Basically, all of your artifacts are mana rocks at this point. So being able to just be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I play my 0-cost artifact. Oh, I tap it for mana. Oh, cool. I play another one. Oh, I've got this spell that untaps all my things. Doing it again, again, again. Stealthy Wildcard. This one. Actually, I'm going to zoom in real quick to make it a little easier. There we go. Stealthy Wildcard. This one being like, you know what? I combo with everything, essentially. Don't worry about that whenever you cast. I mean, that's nice, getting, Impulse Draw. But tap, copy target, in source spell you control. You may choose targets for the copy. Activate if you cast 3 more spells this turn. If you simply just have any spell that untaps Stella, cool, you get to do that infinitely. That's literally what you can do with this. Now, obviously, there's only so many ways to win with that. I mean, if you have any kind of Magecraft triggers, great. But also, if you just have, like, an untapped spell that draws you a card, you can draw your entire deck. If you've got Dramatic Reversal, you can just untap your entire team, get infinite mana with Mana Dorks, etc., etc. it storms super easy and super quickly. Nimizit Perrin, also pretty gross. Whenever you're drawing a card, 1 damage to any target. Whenever you cast in or sorcery, any player should say, cast in sorcery, draw a card. So this one can just lead to spell after spell after spell, cast some ritual effects, and do some crazy things as well. Again, already talked about Joyrah, whether like Captain, casting a historic spell, draw a card. Artifacts, Legendary Sagas are historic. Here's the thing, the most powerful version of Joyrah is artifacts, because artifacts are the most abusable thing out there, so do some disgusting things with that by getting some things out there that reduce the cost of artifacts, cast them for free, draw cards, bounce the artifacts back to your hand, do it again and again and again and again and again to have a 20-minute turn that then will teach you a lesson that other players might not want to play against that when it's like your, couple third week or fourth week or whatever, or first month or whatever it was of playing Commander for me. When I started doing that, I was like, oh, players don't necessarily like this. Maybe I shouldn't do that again. But believe me, I have fallen into the trap of a couple of these strategies where I was like, oh, I thought that'd be more fun. My other players didn't have very much fun with this. Maybe I should change things up. Okay, I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but Quark the Thumb List, this one bounces spells back to your hand, essentially, or copies them, so you can do some pretty gross things with that, too. Bergie, God of Storytelling, basically a ritual effect added to every single one of your cards that you're playing. Emery, again, artifacts, some gross things there. Storm Force of Nature, already on this list because, yeah, you can storm off with Storm when Storm gives things Storm. Elsha the Infinite, kind of like an adjusted version of Joyrah. Storm is a strategy that is really cool, and again, I am a Johnny type player where I love the Rube Goldberg machine. I love putting the pieces together. I love having these really cool interactions. The problem is when you, again, just monopolize the game, monopolize the time of the game. That is what Storm does. You are playing solitaire, and then all of a sudden your opponents are like, oh, okay, I'm just going to check out because I'm not doing anything. I can't respond to any of these things, and the game is probably over, but maybe not, so we're just going to sit here for 20 minutes while you do that. So Storm is the first one I want to bring up because I've had personal experience with it and have definitely learned that, yeah, some players out there, many players out there, are not okay with Storm. So again, before you play at the LGS, before you get there and say like, I'm just going to surprise Storm people, you really should be bringing this one up first and be like, hey, is everyone okay with Storm? And again, don't be offended if they're like, no, or if they're like, yes, but when you do storm off, we're probably just going to concede because we don't want to sit around for all that time. Next up, another strategy that is, yes, problematic in Casual Commander. This one might be the most problematic, I would say. The most, yeah, kind of grinds players' gears, and they really might just leave the table and go play with someone else. Stacks. Stacks is a strategy that, well, isn't all that welcome in Casual Commander because it is one that grinds things to a halt. Stacks is a strategy that utilizes, and let's see if I can scroll down far enough really quick. There we go. We got it. Cards like, Dranth Magistrate, Aven Mindcester, Archon of Emerion, Winter Orb, those kinds of cards. Basically things that say, hey, you know what? You can't do this, or you can't do that, or you get less resources. It's just slowing games down to a grinding halt. Maybe for all players, including the player who's playing the stack, but also you're going to have different ways to take advantage of things, and maybe just for all opponents instead of yourself. So, ways to absolutely decimate them. Some commanders, I mean, the most famous of all these commanders, one that you literally cannot convince me if you're playing it that is not going to be problematic when we play, Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. You'd have to show me, like, the entire deck. You'd have to show me your entire deck before the game started and be like, yeah, see, it's actually Group Hug Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. And you're like, how? How did you do this? So Grand Arbiter Augustin IV is kind of the perfect example of a stacks commander. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. By the way, your opponent's spells cost 1 more to cast. Literally, if it didn't have those first two parts and just still had that third part, it'd still be a problematic commander because it's like, oh, my spells cost less, your spells cost more. So obviously, if you get more and more and more of these effects out there that are more and more and more resource draining, you are going to be slowing your opponents down to a halt. They cannot move. They cannot do anything. They are walking through quicksand until they are stuck and they cannot move at all. You're going to have things that, well, you can't untap. You can't search your library for this. You can't do that. You can't play more than one of these this turn. You can't do that this turn. A lot of you can't do this grinds the gears of many Commander players because certain Commander players out there literally go to the Commander format versus other formats because they don't like strategies like this potentially that are, well, problematic in their minds. Lavinia Azorius Renegade is another example of this. Each opponent can't cast non-creature spells of mana value greater than the number of lands that player controls. From a player casts a spell if no mana is spent to cast to counter that spell. So again, Basically, again, saying you can't do this, you can't do that, having all these ways to do it. And I would say the main colors in stacks that are good at controlling things and slowing things down are the two control colors, really, in Magic for the most part, white and blue. They are very good at doing that and saying, no, you're not doing that. I've got this enchantment to play that says you can't do that. Yeah, you can't play more than one spell each turn or whatnot. You can't do this turn. And again, just having a commander that is low to the ground and can stop certain strategies already is pretty gross. Heliod Suncrown, actually I did not realize, is utilized as a stacks commander. Interesting. This one is probably like stacks with like a combo finisher because it is combo. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but yeah. Heliod Suncrown is like, you know what? Hey, I'm just going to sit here, I guess, wait for the combo to happen, and utilize, again, in white, you've got a lot of really powerful stacks pieces. Another one of the most famous ones that has fallen off, I feel like, because Derevi is definitely one that's like, you know what, there's a taboo around this commander. It is a 2/3 bird wizard for 3 mana in Bant. Again, Bant kind of can be a friendly color combination, right? Like, hey, Feldgriff, which is also sometimes not friendly, but yeah, it's like, hey, you know what? We're all just here to have a good time, but I'm going to control everything. This one, actually, you can cheat out into place, you know, get around commander tax, essentially, by just paying 1 more mana on top of the commander, basically, to get it from the command zone on the battlefield. That being said, though, whenever it enters the battlefield or a creature control deals combo to a player, or you may tap or untap target permanent. Yeah, this can be a great way to just, oh, I tapped down all your things. By the way, I have this one thing in play that says, hey, you can only untap one of your things each turn. Oh my goodness, you can't do anything with any of your lands. Good luck doing anything at all. Winona Joiner Forces is a great commander to cheat creatures out, and if you just build a bunch of hate bears into your deck, those low-to-the-ground creatures that basically say, you can't do this, you can't do that, all of a sudden you're swinging with them, they get more of them, and then you have all these effects in play. They're like, hey, nothing happens for you all, and I get all the things. Yay! Zur the Enchanter, when it attacks, you may search your life for an enchantment card, may value 3 or less from the battlefield, then shuffle. Here's the thing, plenty of great stacksy enchantments that cost 3 or less, so tutor out the best ones for the situation that you're in, and just keep doing that again and again and again and again and again, and your opponents won't be able to do anything to stop you. Oh my goodness, look who showed up on this list again. Urza, Lord High Artificer. Yeah, there's a reason why Urza is one of the most salty commanders out there, according to EDH Rec, I should say, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very salt-heavy commander. It even has a little salt shaker on it right there, if you can see in the bottom left. But yeah, Urza, again, is a commander that, yeah, you can build it stacks. You can build it in so many powerful ways. We already talked about Storm. You can build it stacks as well. Again, blue has a lot of stacks pieces, and whereas your opponents are going to be in trouble, you've got plenty of ways to be like, oh yeah, even though I've got this thing in play that doesn't allow me to untap, I can just untap all my things with maybe like a dramatic reversal. All my artifacts can tap for mana. I'll be fine. Good for me. Yeah, a couple other ones, though, like Thalia Gitrog, also good at shutting things down. Akori Dustdrinker, my goodness, just disgusting. Lands on untapping. Everyone gets to untap one land they control each turn. That might be the most stacksy commander out there. Yeah, so stacks, again, is a type of strategy that, again, is completely acceptable in other formats, many other formats out there. And I would say that, again, all the ones I'm talking about are, but Commander is kind of a different beast where it is more of a social format. And when you change up the dynamics of a Commander game in such a big way, like I talked about with Storm, where, yeah, that one changes it where one person just playing solitaire. That's literally what the game becomes. It's one person plays, the other players don't. This one is no one plays. Stacks is more so no one plays at all. Not because I'm taking a 20-minute turn. I could just pass if I had the stacks deck. But still, no one is playing because I'm not allowing people to utilize their resources or do certain things at all. I am grinding the game down to a halt, and nothing can happen from there ever again until I eventually win with whatever attrition or whatever combo I've got in the deck as well. So yeah, stacks, in my opinion, might be the least inviting tactic, the least inviting deck type in casual Commander. And players, if you are going to be playing a stacks deck, you absolutely have to let other players know at the LGS before you play that game. Otherwise, they literally will leave that table. They might leave that table, and I would not blame them for doing so when on turn 2 you throw down Winter Orb, and they're like, yeah, this isn't what we're about. And you're like, oh, you know what? It's a Magic card, so it's completely fine to play. And that's not how casual Commander works. Which leads us into our next tactic, our next deck archetype, which is land destruction, which, okay, might have an argument against stacks, you know, which one is more hated in the format, the least accepted type of deck in the format. It might be land destruction. Let me know in the comments below if you think it's land destruction or stacks or storm or combo or the other ones that we're going to get to as well, but I think land destruction has got to be right up there with stacks. And they are similar. They are different in some ways. Stacks more so is getting a bunch of different things out there in play that says you can't do this, you can't do that. Mass land destruction, and I'm just saying like regular, it's mass land destruction, is like, hey, you know what? All of a sudden, all the resources are gone, and we're gonna, you know, skid the game down to a halt, and we're just gonna be like, oh, okay, I guess we have to rebuild again until I destroy all the lands again. So yeah, this is a type of tactic that, again, in other formats, acceptable. In Commander, yeah, this can really elongate games, and when Commander games are already like 1 to 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours potentially, it can turn games into, there you go, 2 to 3 hours or so, and it's not just being very time conscious, essentially. And that is something that can grind the gears of many Commander players out there. So when it comes to some commanders that do utilize mass land destruction, I mean, Zozu the Punisher is definitely one. Typically, you're going to have red. Red is usually a color that has a lot of mass land destruction. And Zozu the Punisher says, you know what? Hey, whenever anyone plays a land or whenever land is battlefield under their control, they get 2 damage. So this one's like, you know what? Okay, I just destroyed all the lands. Oh, you need to play more. Okay, you're taking damage for that. You need to play more. Oh, you're taking damage for that. And I probably have damage doublers, damage triplers. So literally at a certain point of the game, like late in the game, you have like 6 life left. And you have to know how you have no lands in play. And you have to play lands. But every single time you play a land, you take 4 damage. So good luck doing anything at all. New map, the Devastator, has basically when it deals combat to your player, you can play some mana. If you do, destroy up to 2 target lands. So this one is repeatable land destruction as well. Lord Windgrace gives you a -3 bring back 2 land cards to your graveyard back to the battlefield. So again, it is that unbalanced approach where, okay, I destroy all the lands. Cool. All right. Looks like we had to reset. Awesome. Well, I'm getting some back right away with my commander, and you are not. So I am speeding way ahead of you. Svella Ice Shaper is one that you can pay 3 and tap to make a mana rock, basically. They can tap for 1 mana of any color. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't need lands. I have all these mana rocks in play, so I'm just going to utilize them to destroy all the lands. And actually, I'm pretty sure I built like a Lose Your Friends deck with Svella doing exactly that. But yeah, it is a strategy that, of course, is effective. All these strategies are effective. That's why they exist. The problem is they're effective in a way that a lot of casual Commander players don't like to play against. They just don't. All right, Soul Windgrace, again, ways to get lands and utilize them and that kind of stuff as well. Azazon, Shaper of Sand, whenever a desert enters the battlefield under your control, create 2 1/1s, but also more importantly, hey, you can play deserts from your graveyard. So again, a way to unbalance the scales to say, you know what, all of a sudden I destroy all the lands. Well, I can build back from my graveyard. I don't need to have a land constantly in my hand to be able to play them, and I also probably have additional land effects where I get more than 1 land to play in a turn. We also have Kothos, God of Destiny, again, utilizing lands of the graveyard. A lot of different kinds of commanders that, yes, are cool, are awesome, can be built different ways, but when built in last land destruction, it is a type of strategy that, again, players out there don't necessarily like when you mess with resources. It's fine, you know, to a certain extent when you mess with certain resources, right? But when you're like, you know what, let's just reset everything, and all of a sudden the game goes from, again, taking 1 hour or 2 hours to 2 to 3 hours to maybe even more than that because you reset everything. Players don't necessarily like that, and yeah, that's just kind of how it is. So yes, literally, I mean, definitely stacks and definitely land destruction. Kind of with all these, you really should be giving a heads up to the table ahead of time. But yeah, definitely land destruction, definitely stacks. You need, if you're an LGS team, you've never played with these players before, you need to ask ahead of time if they are okay with mass land destruction, and don't be surprised when they say no. Do not be surprised when they say, yeah, that's not exactly what I'm looking for with my commander game here. Or again, literally, it's like, okay, if you destroy the lands, we're probably always going to concede because we don't want to have to rebuild everything for another hour, okay? Next up, the next type of deck that is somewhat problematic, depending on kind of the level of it, I would say, is combo. Now, combo can widely vary from, hey, okay, I've got this like really janky 5-card combo that just happens to be in the deck, and literally if it just happens to work, cool, great. I don't have things to tutor for it. Just like, oh, wow, that actually works with that, which works with that. Like unexpected synergies, basically. Or it can go all the way to the extreme of like, yeah, I've got like all these 2-card combos in the deck that I've got all these tutors for, and that's all I'm trying to do is get to them, essentially. So there's a wide spectrum on combo versus I would say like if you've got a stack, it's probably as stacksy as you can make it. If you've got a land destruction deck, mass land destruction, also the same thing. There's not really a kind of like barometer on those. Combo, I would say, is a bit more varied, okay? So when it comes to combo, again, there are some players that are not okay with like literally any combos out there at all. It depends on the play group. This one's more so really play group dependent when it comes to the casual side of the format. When it comes to, again, like my play group, for example, For the most part, my playgroup is fine with like a combo if it's say like, oh yeah, it's like really late in the game, like we've all done what we wanted to do, and it's like a miscellaneous 3-card combo that you're like, oh yeah, okay, I guess that works, cool, all right. But like you didn't like tutor for every single piece of it to like make it work and just like win on turn 5. So that's typically how my playgroup functions, and other playgroups can be completely different. And again, this one is one where you kind of need to get like a test the waters. You need to ask, again, you always should be asking when it comes to a social format like Commander, you should be asking whether players are kinds of decks they're playing, what kinds of decks they want to play against, what kind of experience they want to have, and asking, you know, like, okay, are you okay with like 2-card combos, 3-card combos, no combos at all? You might have some other cards that you can like swap out essentially to make sure that you're not comboing, or you can just like, yeah, not combo with your cards if you don't need to. So with this kind of one, let's point out some commanders that, yes, can combo, don't have to combo, but yeah, apparently Carrick, Crick, I can never know how to say that name, Son of Yawgmoth, does have some combos in it. Absolutely, it definitely can, because it does turn all your black mana pips into Phyrexian black mana, so you can do some pretty crazy things with that. That being said, Bray Ethereum Shaper, an artifact commander that gives you access to nearly every single color. It's a very powerful commander. Being able to give you access to a lot of artifact combos, yeah, you can do that. Kinnan Bonner Prodigy is a combo with a ham sandwich type of commander. Basically says whenever you're tapping your non-land permanents for mana, you get an extra mana. So it combos just with Basalt Monolith itself. A lot of other things as well. Just giving you extra mana from things is pretty gross. And on top of that, it gives you a way to just dump that mana in there. Corvold Faker is king. Apparently some combos in that as well. But yeah, sacrificing permanents, drawing cards, quite powerful. Will help the Rot Cleaver, sacrificing zombies and a Decayed thing. You know, being able to create more zombies, great. Urza Lord High Artificer, again, has been on like literally every single one of these lists as well. Yes, there are combos with Urza too, and again, you have a mana sink into it as well. Sissy Weatherlight Captain, again, a mana sink that you can just say, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I'll tutor for this legendary thing, tutor for this other thing, and I combo and win. Kenrith, the Return King, if you have infinite mana, you win. That's literally all you need to do, and this commander can combo, can actually generate combos with that last ability as well. Actually, a couple of these abilities, I believe, but yeah, being able to just be like, oh, I have infinite mana, okay, you all draw your decks and you lose. Yay! Niv-Mizzet Perrin, combos with Niv-Mizzet Perrin. I mean, also just combos, though, with, like, other cards that was, like, Curiosity. Like, certain things, it's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, whenever it deals damage, I draw a card, and it deals damage and draws a card. Cool, so you're just basically doing that. There are a lot of different commanders that can combo. Again, already talked about Stella Lee, Wildcard, Chatterfang's another one, Magda apparently is one, too. But yes, being able to combo is something that, again, it depends on the level. It depends on how quick it is. It depends on, are you tutoring for all these pieces? Are you just happen to run into all 4 of those cards that happen to combo? Is it just synergies that work together? Or is it like intentioned comboing early? It really depends on the group. And again, social format, make sure you talk ahead of time and get an idea what other players want to play. So, yeah, be more respectful if you can, and yeah, make sure everyone has a good time instead of just being like, ha, turn 3, got you all, shuffle up and let's play again. Why are you all leaving the table? Why? No, it should be fine. Comboing, these cards exist in Magic, I should be able to play them! Moving on to the next theme that can be, well, somewhat problematic as well. That is discard. So here's the thing about discard, and I do think that one of the problems with this one specifically is literally the art of a specific commander in this theme that has, it's adorable. It is adorable, and you probably see it right now, but I will talk about the commander that kind of has put this one more so on the map, and players like, yeah, it's cool, fun, and it's like, oh gosh, oh, that experience, oh my goodness. So discard, again, is resource denial. And resource denial where, like, with stacks, it's resource denial where your opponents have the biggest hands they could ever want. They've got 7 cards in their hand. They just literally can't do anything with those cards because you've shut down the board so much where literally like, oh, well, I can only play 1 spell per turn, but my spells cost 8 mana more to play, and I don't have the mana to do that, and my land's on untap, so I can't do anything. Discard is the exact opposite of that, where it's like, oh, okay, well, I've got lands in play, there's nothing stopping me from playing things, but I don't have cards in my hand. I top deck a card, does it help me? No. Okay, well, I guess I won't do anything. Pass the turn. Wait till my next turn. Oh, I top deck another card. Doesn't help me. Oh, no. Okay, so literally just like, all of a sudden just grinding the game to a halt because it's just pass. Okay, the player's playing the discard deck gets to do things. Okay, go ahead again. Pass. pass, because the players that don't have a hand are literally just top decking Yu-Gi-Oh! Heart of the cards, hoping to hit something to get them out of this predicament, and nothing is. So again, the commander that really, the character I would say that has really kind of more so put discard on the map is Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones Trinket Thief is like, it's an adorable, again, this cute little skeleton rogue that's just like, I'm stealing things. Cute. Oh my goodness. And the art is adorable. It is a cute character. I 100% agree. The problem with making it so cute is players are like, yeah, look at my cute commander I'm playing. And if I see a Tiny Bones deck across from me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is probably going to be pretty miserable, because yes, that's an adorably cute commander. But when you're like, okay, everyone discards 3 cards. Okay, all right, on your upkeep, you discard a card. All right, when you cast a spell, you discard a card. All right, you have no cards in hand. Great. It is an adorable creature, but it also is kind of like taunting you when it's just like, hey, look how cute I am. By the way, you enjoying this experience? No? Too bad. At the beginning of each turn, 7 opponent discard a card this turn, you draw a card, lose 1 life. So again, literally all of a sudden you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Did you discard a card on a turn? Cool. All right, great. I get to draw a card and I lose 1 life. 1 life is not a big deal at all. So like, as the Tiny Bones player, even if you are literally just discarding cards yourself with like these mass discard effects, it doesn't matter, because your opponent's discarding 2 and you're drawing cards to replace them. On top of that, yes, it does have a way to put your opponents out of their misery by each opponent no cards in hand loses 10 life. So that is a way to finish them off versus just top deck, top deck, top deck. Turgid, God of Fright, Turgid, God of Salt is one of the saltiest commanders out there for a reason. This one is gross. Whenever opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that on the battlefield from a graveyard basically under your control. So you just like steal your opponent's things by forcing them to edict effect or discard. So yes, basically a gross, disgusting commander that never should have been printed. And I will stick by that. Every single time I talk about Turgid. Oscar Roche Reclaimer, I did not realize, apparently, was just all about discard as well. 1 last to cast for each different mana value among cards in your graveyard. When you discard a non-land card you cast from your graveyard. So with discard, actually, this is look like it's including, on this one specifically on EDH Rec, is also including, like, self-discard, which is not to my knowledge, it's just not a type of deck that is, well, really all that disliked by opponents. Self-discard, not so much. When it comes to discard, yeah, making your opponent's discard is more so what it is. Croxa, Titan of Death's Hunger is another one. We'll get to Real the Everwise, actually, in another one as well. But yeah, this one, again, is more so like, hey, when you're discarding, Aklazotz, again, is one that is forcing opponents to discard too. So yeah, being able to, again, this one says, hey, when it attacks, each opponent discards a card. Cool, they can't. You draw a card. So again, you're going up in value. You are encouraged to actually say, hey, opponents, you go down, I go up. One more I want to bring up, though, is Tiny Bones Bauble Burglar. Again, adorable, cute. Tiny Bones is back. But yeah, having your opponents discard cards, eggs up from their graveyard stash counters on, then you can cast those with mana. It's basically like a lesser version of Turgid, like a more acceptable quote-unquote version of Turgid, but still, your goal is like, my opponents have no cards in hand, and this is great. This is like literally what you're trying to do, because you're like, oh, you all discarded like 20 cards in total? Cool, I stashed those cards, they are mine, I can utilize them, and you have no cards, and you're top decking. Too bad. So yes, again, Tiny Bones is, I'm not going to say a problematic commander. I'm going to say that it is problematic, that it is so adorable because it hides the fact and how potentially miserable the experience is to play against it because it is so cute. If it was a disgusting looking thing or whatever that was like, oh gosh, yeah, that is, oh, why would I, oh no, it's not adorable, I think it would actually see less play. I do think it would see less play if it was something else. But it is an adorable little skeleton rogue thing, and it is, yeah, discard. Kind of like the opposite of stacks in a way. Again, you have all the resources you could want potentially in play. Like, I've still got my 7 lands. No one's, making me not be able to untap them, but I can't use them because I don't have cards in my hand. And if I draw something, well, they might just make me discard that. Or, yeah, if I draw something and it's not useful to me, then it's just useless and it's just going to stay in my hand and then my opponent's going to be discarded anyways. So, yeah, discard. Whee! And speaking of Wii, next up, wheels! Yay! That's not what you say. You're like, wee! No one says that when someone wheels at the table. Maybe you do, but yeah, wheels are something that, like, when used lightly, I say very lightly, like, okay, yeah, the occasional wheel, it's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I only had, like, 3 cards in hand, like, I could use a reset where I draw, some more cards, would be great, okay, cool, yeah, thank you for wheeling, I appreciate that. But when you wheel like 20 times in a game, that's like chaos incarnate, and your opponents are like, oh, okay, I guess I don't know what I'm doing at this point, because I had a plan, and then you wheeled, and then that changed my plan, and then you wheeled a third time, and then you did it again and again. I literally just don't know what my hand is. I can't plan ahead at all. And also, you're punishing me when I'm doing this, or you're making it so that, yeah, you get extra effects and I don't get effects. Wheels. Yay. Yeah, wheels, I guess I should say, are like, hey, everyone discards their hand and draws 7 is the typical wheel. There's other ones where it's like everyone discards their hand, the draw is equal to the max amount of a player discarded, essentially. So it depends on what the wheel is. But basically, yeah, discard your hand, 7 cards is basically what a wheel is. And usually, again, when it's like everyone draws cards, like players love drawing cards, but when it comes to wheels, not so much. Negosar the Mind Razor, kind of like the OG wheel commander, where it's like, hey, everyone, you get extra cards. Yay! But also, when you draw cards, you get punished for it. Oh, it's like Underworld Dreams on a commander, and then again, you wheel, like a wheel, and all of a sudden your opponents are taking an absurd amount of damage because they are drawing an absurd amount of cards that they will never use because you're wheeling before they can actually play those cards again. Shield of the Apocalypse, again, making it so that, you know what? I draw cards, I gain life. Yay! Opponents draw cards, they lose life. Aww. Xyrus the Writhing Storm. Basically, hey, whenever opponents wheel, you get a bunch of snakes. That's essentially what it is. On top of that, when it hits, you can make players draw cards too. The Locust God. Whenever you're drawing cards, you make 1/1s with haste. Basically, hey, I make everyone wheel. I'm drawing cards. You aren't planning ahead well, and all of a sudden, I make a giant army of locusts that come through and hit you. Quasar Augur of Agonies, very simple, very effective. Draw a card, drain opponents. Min Wily Illusionist, cheat things into play, but also, yeah, drawing cards in turn, you cheat, get some, like, illusions in play. Quite fun for you. Nimizit Parent, again, hey, casting in sorceries, ping things, so being able to draw into other cards. Yeah, and also, yeah, ping players, yeah, when you're drawing cards, basically. But yeah, when you're casting in sorceries, draw cards, which do ping as well. Quain, Iterate Meddler, a very, very friendly commander in some ways, but also apparently a wheel commander as well. Helia the Radiant Dawn reduces the cost of cards on the backside of this, and all of a sudden, yeah, you can cast wheels for, like, basically no mana at all. Ms. Bumbleflower, do not trust Ms. Bumbleflower. Actually did an episode on, like, secretly evil commanders, and this is definitely one of them. Check that episode out. But yeah, Ms. Bumbleflower, never trust her at all. And yeah, I'm not surprised to see her as a wheel commander as well. Never trust the Bumbleflower. But again, yeah, when players... Again, this isn't affecting, like, resources when it comes to, like, I'm shutting you down from playing things. This is literally, like, I'm shutting down your strategy. Like, you don't know what's going on ever because you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'll do this, and then I'll do that. And the player's like, well, I wheeled again. You're like, oh, okay, all right, I guess I draw again. Okay, I'll draw again. Okay, okay, what do I do with these cards now? Okay, well, I'm trying to figure that out. And the player's like, by the way, I'm wheeling again. And then you're just like, oh, okay, discard those. Okay, forget the next cards. Okay, next cards. Okay. I don't know what's going on. You literally don't know what's going on. What is happening in this game? And then also, yeah, you're probably being punished when you are wheeling as well. Or the opponent is getting a much better deal out of it than you are. So yeah, wheels, again, a strategy. If you just have, like, 2 wheels in a deck, like, I don't think this is just my personal opinion, I don't think you need to make others aware that, like, hey, I have 2 wheels in my deck. Okay, good for you. No, but if you have, like, 10 wheels in your deck, yeah, that's a wheel deck. And you need to make your opponents aware of that because some players, it's not their jam. Next up, speaking of not a player's jam, Infect. Now, when I say Infect, technically this is more so like poison, but it shows up on EDH Rec as Infect because I think it's just famously what it initially was, right? Basically, Infect was the actual keyword that was the one where it's like, this is how poison essentially works, right? So it is poison, it is Infect, it is toxic, it is a combination of all the things. The reason some players are salty about Infect in Commander is because, well, certain things, you know, happen with the format of Commander, right? When it was established, all right? We said, you know what? We're going from 20 life to 40 life. That is doubling your life. Cool, all right. We have a much bigger library as well, all right? But yeah, we went from 20 life to 40 life, and we doubled that, but like poison counters, we didn't adjust that at all. No. Poison counters in Standard and other formats as well were 10. 10 you lose, which was half the amount, right? 10 to 20, that is half the amount of your life total. In Commander, it did not adjust at all either. It is 10 out of 40, right? It is 1/4 of your life total. All you need to do is just get to 10 and you take your opponent out. And this can be very, very quick. One of the things about Infect that might upset some players as well is Infect decks typically, I would say, they tend to go first after a player. They go first after one player at a time. It is probably more beneficial. Yeah, there's certain strategies where it's like, okay, I can, proliferate is a very good thing with it. But like, if I really get off to a quick start and I want to take a player out that I think is going to be problematic and I'm playing an Infect deck, I'm going to really try hard to take that player out first. I take them out, and then maybe I'll stumble for a bit. So, like, I took them out, but then someone wiped the board. So now, all of a sudden, like, that player that I took out, is gone. They lost very, very quickly, like super early in the game, and they've got to sit around if they want to play the next game with our group. They have to sit around for a long time, potentially, while watching everyone else basically play the game from the start, and they are gone. So yeah, that is another reason why players can get a bit salty with Infect, essentially, and it can be seen as somewhat of a problematic one. It also can be a giant surprise factor, too, with certain cards like Tainted Strike, where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm swinging with this creature, and they're like, oh, well, I've got 40 life. I can decide not to block that. Like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll Tainted Strike it and pump it, and you lose, because all of a sudden my creature that just swung through has Infect, instead of you thinking like, oh, okay, I'll go down to like 33, or like whatever it was, 30, 31. All of a sudden it's like, oh no, that's Infect damage, poison damage, and you lose. So yeah, it can be like out of nowhere as well, potentially. Attracts the Praetor's Voice, and it's something that you can't get rid of. Like, again, you can heal yourself, but you really can't get rid of, like, poison counters. Attracts the Praetor's Voice. This one proliferates at your end step. So, yeah, it is just that kind of, like, slow and grinding potential. Like, once you get one poison counter on you, this is going to keep adding to it with other proliferate effects as well. And just be like, oh, no. It is this creeping, crawling, like it's going to get to me. Isha XL, Sign of Atraxa, Toxic 2 on it already. So again, literally every hit on it is going to be 2 poison counters. Also benefits for Corrupted. Vishkasti, Doomhide, again, Menace Toxic. Also has, you know, hey, let's make some mites that also have Toxic. And it's going to get quite large based off of the number of poison counters opponents have. Other attracts a Green Unifier, apparently also an Infect commander. Finn Fangbearer. This one turns Death Touch into basically double Infect. Not double Infect, but double poison. So basically, you hit anyone with any creatures that have Death Touch, which there are quite a few, and many, many, many that are low to the ground. I'm talking about like turn 1 play, then turn 2 play this. All of a sudden, you already swing on turn 2 an opponent, and they get 2 poison counters. Turn 3, you're swinging with both of these, and you also get another creature to play with poison as well, or Death Touch, I should say. And you are already off to the races, taking players out in absolutely no time. Vermez, Blight of Rascos. Yes, again, yet another way. Like Phyrexian, kind of like Phyrexian decks in themselves, typically have a lot of crossover with Toxic, with Infect as well. So yeah, and also like encourages you to proliferate with like incubate type effects as well. So yeah, Infect is not resource draining, which other ones, again, that we've talked about so far have, or like time constraint kind of like, oh yeah, that player just takes all the time in the world, like a Storm deck. This one is more so, I take a player out quickly, they are gone, and they might not agree with the, you know, the life totals in Commander doubling, but not Infect, you know, totals, poison counters doubling as well. But yeah, essentially, I took a player out really quickly. They're sitting there and watching, and the board got wiped, so the player who's, you know, the Infect player is no longer a threat currently, so the game's going to take a little while longer, and yeah, I'm just sitting and watching. So that's why that one can be a little problematic. Next up, now, this is one that I would say is, it is one that I personally, I'm not surprised with any of the other ones really, as to, I can see why some players out there have problems with basically anyone else. Like, you know, Storm, again, I learned that one very, very early on in my Commander career, where I built this deck and I was like, oh, this is so cool. All right, everyone watch how cool it is. And they're like, oh, well, I guess we're just going to watch you play for 20 minutes on your own. I'm like, it's cool though, yeah? Yeah. Stacks, land destruction, like those make sense to me. Combo to a certain extent, again, like certain kind of combos, absolutely. Discard definitely does make sense to me as well. Wheels, yeah, that can get annoying. Infect, I personally don't have a problem with Infect, but I can see why players would. Mill makes nearly no sense to me why players are upset about it, but I'm not saying it doesn't make sense to me. I understand the thought process of it. I just kind of disagree with the thought process. That being said, everyone is entitled to their own opinions and on, you know, not liking certain things in certain playstyles. So Mill, this, and correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding from players who do not like Mill is basically they don't like losing their cards and seeing their cards and basically seeing that they could have had this card that would have saved them from this situation essentially, but they lost their card that could have done that, which was on the top of the library. Here's my counter argument to not liking Mill. You might not have ever drawn that card anyways. Or like, you know, so you are keeping track of the times when it doesn't benefit you, and you are ignoring the times that it does. Because when a player mills you, and you see, oh no, my favorite card, I was going to draw into that and it would have saved me, you're also ignoring the times of, oh, that player milled me, they got rid of all my garbage cards, and then next turn I drew into my best card, and that helped me. There are two sides of it, and I understand that players don't like losing their cards, but also, like, mill's not a very powerful strategy at all for the most part, and yeah, like, it's random as to what order the cards are in, so unless you, like, literally stack the top of your deck with certain spells, and someone's milling you, it's random as to what the order the cards are in. So, like, you could be losing out on the worst cards. You could be losing on the best cards. It doesn't, like, It's just miscellaneous and random, okay? It really is. It's miscellaneous and random. And I know it's aggravating when you kind of see some of your best cards in your graveyard that you can't get to, but like in a different game, like you might not have had those cards on top of your library anyway. So it's like, to me, it's just like the random nature of things. But again, like everyone's got their own opinion on what they like and don't like. Some players out there are completely fine with discard. I don't like playing against discard, which is completely, everyone's different opinion on it. It's a casual format. You talk ahead of time and you say like, hey, I've got a mill deck. Are you okay with that? This is one again that I don't know why, but I don't exactly comprehend why players don't like mill, but some players don't like mill. So yeah, if you're playing with the Captain or the Wise Mothman or Sidisi, I mean Sidisi is more like a self mill. Like self mill players are okay with. I don't think I've ever run into someone who's not okay with, like, please stop milling yourself. Like I don't think I've run into that. But yeah, of course Bruvac, probably one of the more popular ones as well. Phoenix, God of Deception. When it comes to milling other opponents, yeah. And Bruvac maybe is kind of more like combo mill, because like if you have like the spells that are like, hey, mill half your library, and then it doubles up, then yeah, they're gone. But yeah, it kind of always surprised me when players like aren't okay with playing against a Phoenix deck because it mills them. Like that's mill, you're at like a disadvantage compared to nearly any other way of trying to take your opponents out. Like literally, again, in Commander, right, you double up your health from 20 to 40 from other formats. But when it comes to the number of cards that you need to mill, you're not just doubling from like 60 to 120. No. You're going from 60 to basically 300 cards. Now, I know like you already draw cards or whatever, but like, again, you've got 3 opponents, and each have 100 cards versus 1 opponent with 60 cards. It's an absurd amount more cards that you need to actually mill to actually win the game. And also, there are cards out there like the Eldrazi Titans, which if you just mill them, it resets the entire thing where like, oh, you shuffle your graveyard just because it got milled. So all of a sudden, the player has to start from scratch again. Not saying that certain mill decks can't be somewhat annoying, I guess, but like, it's not a strategy, in my opinion, that is nearly as problematic as the other ones are, in my opinion, problematic at all. But again, I understand that people have different expectations out of Commander. Okay, the final category that I wanted to bring up, and this one's a bit of a different one, and it's just, in my opinion, like too easy commanders. Like just commanders that are too easy inherently, commanders that are super pushed. Where it's like, oh, you're going to get an eye roll potentially just for bringing this commander to the table. Not just, a certain type of strategy like Storm Stacks, Land Destruction Combo, Discard Wheels, Infect, and yes, even Mill, I guess, which are seen by some as problematic. But literally just bringing a certain commander to the table, you might get hated out just because you brought that commander to the table. Because that commander is maybe just problematic just for existing on its own. Now, we've already talked about some of these, which like, okay, Kinnan in combo, Najeela also combo. Yuriko, though, yeah, not necessarily combo, but can go super fast. Also cheats on commander attacks, which is kind of annoying because like trying to deal with this and get rid of it permanently, you really can't. And also just draining things really quickly. Urza, again, I already talked about like in 3 or 4 different strategies as to why Urza can be annoying. Joda the Unifier, yeah, absurd value. Cascade, just you get a bunch of free stuff. You just chuck. You grab just a handful of miscellaneous legendaries that are powerful, and you just chuck them all in a deck, and it's probably a pretty good deck because it's just like, hey, you get free value. You get free things. Yay. Kenny, I already talked about Kenny and why Kenny is OP good. Corvold can get really annoying in really long games, again, because you're sacrificing things, you're drawing, you're sacrificing things, drawing. Also gonna be combo, apparently. First Sliver, again, like that Cascade. So, like, these overpowered pushed commanders that are just, like, so kind of, like, just above other ones when it comes to the power level and the amount of pushness that Wizards put into them. It makes it so that other players are gonna be like, yeah, I don't either, not necessarily would not want to play against those, but like, if we're playing, I'm probably gonna convince the other 2 players that we're playing with to take you out first because that commander is obnoxiously powerful, and if we let you get going, the game is going to end. So yeah, again, when I'm saying this, it's kind of like a different category of commander, and it's, yeah, it really depends, but yeah, the overpowered push commander is kind of a theme where it's like, yeah, that can kind of grind some players' gears. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. As always, comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.